opportunity, and jobs. Virginians want more jobs. Virginians want more economic opportunity. They want economic security, and they need a raise. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I think some of you attended the press conference the other day, led by Marcus Simon, about student debt and the importance of trying to address some of the student debt challenges as part of an overall economic opportunity initiative that we're pushing in this session. But beyond that, we want to talk today about a number of certain things that we hope we can push through in the session that will improve the opportunity for the broadest cross-section of Virginians. To start this discussion today, I want to introduce to you the esteemed delegate, Ken Plum, who's going to talk about initiatives in the area of increasing the minimum wage.
Thank you, David, and good morning, everyone. Number one. Well, speaking of number one, on January 1st of this year, 4.3 million workers got a raise. Unfortunately, none of them were in Virginia. You see, states that had already adopted a higher than federal minimum wage or had indexed the minimum wage states got a raise. In Virginia, working men and women have not had such a raise in the minimum wage since 1997. Workers in Virginia with a family who work the minimum wage work below the poverty level. Below the poverty level. Currently, 29 states and the District of Columbia have a minimum wage higher than the federal $7.25 minimum wage rate. Raising the minimum wage in Virginia would affect almost 900,000 Virginians. Over half of this number are full-time workers. A raise in the minimum wage is justified because the erosion that has occurred since it was put in place in the purchasing power of those wages. Economists estimate that the minimum wage reached its highest spending level in 1968. Truing up the minimum wage, and that's what we were first talking about doing, truing up the existing minimum wage to put back the purchasing power that it once had would be about $10 an hour. And the bill that I've introduced in House Bill 1771 proposes that we first do that, we true up the minimum wage. In addition, the bill provides for indexing. And when I talked about the number of states where workers got a raise, it was because it was indexed to the increasing inflation. It would be an automatic inflation adjustment. Some argue that raising the minimum wage would result in a loss of jobs. I would direct you to a PBS report back in October that looked at this claim that they say that says that if wages go up, jobs will go down. It's not a theory. PBS called it a scam. Experience has shown the opposite. In states that have adjusted the minimum wage, for example, there have been no job losses. It doesn't happen. In fact, what happens with raising the minimum wage is you put money back into the economy. And guess what these people who live on the margins do when they get some more money? They spend it. They spend it. And the consequence of that is that the minimum wage increase would actually be healthy for our economy. It's good for Virginian workers. It's good for Virginia's economy. It's a win-win for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. When we raise the minimum wage, everyone's wages rise. Now, our next speaker is Delegate Matthew James, who's going to talk about our democratic efforts to better train our workforce for the 21st century economy. Delegate James.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Good morning. We talk a lot about the economy in this session, and we often talk about creating jobs, and that's what's important. And under our current governor, we've done a lot to create jobs in the new economy for Virginia, but we also need to talk about filling those good-paying jobs that exist. As the governor noted last night as the State of the Commonwealth, we have over slightly less than 150,000 open tech jobs, for example. Last year, Virginia saw many of these jobs have continued to go unfilled. When Ken just talked about raising the minimum wage, for example, we have 36,000 jobs open in cybersecurity. And for those of you like myself, are parents, those jobs start at $88,000 a year. Unfortunately, my daughters don't fit that bill, but that's okay. Other people do. And you compare that, contrast that to what Ken was talking about is, you know, the minimum wage, they're making $15,000 a year. And that's the dichotomy that we think we need to address, and we're going to do that in this session. We need to have better training jobs for the future, and that relates to the bill that that I am introducing. And it's what I call a common sense bill. It's basically allowing people who have gone through an apprenticeship program to get the equivalent of college credit. It's going to lower the cost of their education, and it just makes a lot of sense. It's coming on the heels of last year. We successfully passed the bill that allowed people in the military, that if you were a military person working in the medical field, you should get credit for that because you worked, you've got on-the-job training. And so this job is going to be, I think, very well supported. And it's also, more importantly, it's going to decrease the tuition expense for citizens that live in Portsmouth. I mean, as well as the Commonwealth. I'm sorry. So I know we're short on time, but I want to say, in addition to that, several of my colleagues have several bills that they're introducing. Delegate Sickles has introduced a bill, and Delegate Philicorn, who's not here, has introduced a bill. Again, I want to give her a shout out that also deal with workforce development, because workforce development, in essence and in closing, that's something that we cannot leave behind. Shame on us if we don't have people to fill open jobs. And we cannot ask companies to stay in Virginia if they don't find Virginia people to fill those jobs. So in closing, I want to thank you for that. And our caucus is ready to fulfill that. And in closing, I would also want to say that we also support the governor's initiative to increase the accountability for the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and we'll be working so that they can do their job and they can bring more successful businesses to the Commonwealth of Virginia, as well as have all the other people get those high-wage jobs that we have targeted. So thank you, David, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Delegate James, and as you can see, we have a wide array of our caucus members here, many of whom have introduced similar kinds of bills designed to improve economic opportunity. And I think our communications person, Katie Baker, who you probably met, has got releases for you that detail all those bills that you can talk with people up here offline about. Next up, we've got Delegate Jennifer Boysko, who's going to talk a little bit about legislation related to how women are impacted in the workforce and how we can make it better for women to get more opportunity to improve their lives and increase their wages. Delegate Boysko.
I know I'm small.
What talent.
Thank you all for being here today. You know, earlier this week, our caucus held a press conference to highlight our plans to relieve student debt loan. And today we hear from Delegate Plum about our plans to raise the minimum wage, and from Delegate James about our plan to train a workforce that's prepared to fill the jobs of the future. Those are critical initiatives that will form the cornerstone of a strong economy, and I call upon our colleagues across the aisle to stand with us for the working people and pass those bills. However, as we work to create more jobs and a better educated workforce, we must ensure that all Virginians who work hard and play by the rules have a fair shot at success. And in the year 2017, it is appalling that women still make 79 cents on the dollar to that of men. So I'm introducing two new critical pieces of legislation that will help address the pay gap and ensure that women receive equal pay for equal work. The first bill relates to state employees. It requires the state to write and implement a system to ensure that there is no salary discrimination on the basis of gender. Although current law already requires that the state not discriminate on the basis of gender, we don't really have a way of measuring that. So it's one thing to ban discrimination on paper, but it's another to make sure that those good intentions become reality for Virginians. The second piece of legislation will prohibit employers from inquiring about the salary history of job applicants. This is a bill that will benefit all workers, but women and millennials are typically disadvantaged when asked about salary history. Women are more likely to leave the workplace for a period of time to raise children, like I did, which affects their salary history. Women are also less likely than men to negotiate for a higher figure when extended the initial offer. This can affect salary growth for years. Millennials also stand to benefit from this bill, as many of them graduated during the recession and were forced to take jobs at lower pay than they otherwise would have. And that's also something that can follow them for years. These bills really just help level the playing field for all women and young people to succeed in our economy here in Virginia. They're really just no-brainers, obviously, and I call upon my Republican colleagues to help us move closer to make equal pay for equal work. And I want to say thank you for being here and listening to us.
Thank you, Delegate Boysko. Finally, we'll hear from Delegate Mark Sickles, who's going to talk about legislation that sends an important message to businesses who want to relocate to Virginia. Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Leader Toscano, and all of you for being here today. I'd like to commend Delegate Boysko for her legislation that will help ensure that women can participate equally in our economy. And I'd like to speak to another group that has often been marginalized, and that's the LGBT community. Virginia, like many other states, have come a long way on the issue of same-sex marriage. In 2006, 57% of Virginians voted to place a very discriminatory constitutional amendment in our Constitution. Frankly, at that time, I thought getting 43% of Virginians to vote no was an encouraging sign. And of course, public opinion has changed radically over the last 11 years as more and more people thought about the pursuit of happiness, the legal certainty people want, and they got to know the people in their own families, their neighbors, their sisters, uncles, children, cousins, nephews, nieces, and they want a chance to repeal this from our Constitution. And that's what HJ 538 would do. It would let the voters have another chance at this. This is the constitutional year. This is the year we pass constitutional amendments and get them on the ballot, pass it again, get it on the ballot. You have to do it 2 years in a row, as you know. And this is an issue that's of so much gravity, not only to LGBT people, but to people who love them. And so let's do the right thing for our state here. Thankfully, President-elect Trump has stated that this is now the law of the land, implying that he will not attempt to turn back the clock. But this state provision in our Constitution is also in our code, and it unfortunately passed in my first year here. And I think that those of you who have a chance to go to section 2045.3, this is really amazing that we passed this just in 2004, 12 years ago. A civil union, partnership, contract, or any other arrangement between persons of the same sex purporting to bestow the privileges and obligations of marriage is prohibited. And it goes on. It goes on with bad language that we need to strike from the code, and that's what HB 1395 does. But not the most important, but a second and really important reason to do that is we need to send a message, as the governor said last night, that Virginia is open for business. We don't have to look very far to see what can happen when discrimination becomes official state policy. North Carolina's HB 2 was more than about a bathroom bill, as bad as that is. And according to Forbes magazine, it has cost North Carolina at least $630 million since March. Deutsche Bank, PayPal, NBA, the NCAA have withdrawn investments in the state. We've all heard that. It is a job killer. Governor Nathan Deal in Georgia vetoed a bill like this, among other Republican governors who vetoed it. Vice President-elect Pence, as we all know, had to walk back similar legislation after it passed in Indiana. So, and we have, among all those states I just mentioned, the best tourist economy. Last year we brought into this state $23 billion of tourist money that supported 220,000 jobs, and we don't want to hurt that. We want to grow that. We want to grow our tourism economy. So let's pass HB 1395. It's free to do this, and it's the least expensive way to welcome the world to the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank Thank you very much, Delegate Sickles. And again, it's all about the economy. We hear a lot of rhetoric about job creators. We are all about trying to create jobs. And we hear about job killers. And one of what Delegate Sickles points is that we don't want to have a state that is a job killer through policies that we enact. So with that, we'll take a few short questions and Tommy.
I'm going to ask, just a follow-up to the story we ran. Delegate Russell talked about revamping the party, getting back to basics after the election. How much, this being day 2 of the session, how much have you guys really talked about what he was talking about? How much has that played into the legislation you're proposing?
We talk all about how we're going to go forward as a Democratic Party, and we consistently try to present a positive approach to legislation. I think it's pretty clear that over the last few years, it's all about jobs, opportunity, and people needing higher wages and salaries. We're trying to create those opportunities in lots of different ways, from investing in businesses who want to come here, to investing in our educational system, either K through 12 or higher education, to make sure those opportunities are available in the years to come. That is a positive message. The socially divisive legislation that comes from the other side, whether it be discriminatory legislation or the bathroom bill that people want to talk about today, is not the priority for us. Our priority is to be laser focused on creating jobs. That's what our governor has done. That's what we have tried to support. That's the positive message that Virginians want to hear. That's what they're concerned about, and we're going to just keep working on those things. Another question. Other question. And I believe Katie has distributed the release. You can catch any of us offline to talk about these issues. We thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.